It's Don here from the board. Thanks for coming along and checking out this video. So the other week I did a review video on a hobby table saw. It's the Mini Leaf table saw that was sent to me courtesy of Banggood for review. There should be a link somewhere up there that you can check it out if you haven't seen it. But when I shared that video on Reddit onto the Mechanical Keyboard subreddit, I had a comment there where somebody said, I think you've actually posted it in the wrong subreddit. And I guess from a perspective of mechanical keyboards, they're probably semi-right. Because, well, it's not really something that is straightly obvious mechanical keyboards. So I thought I'd do this video because the last couple of weeks I've spent a bit of time playing with it, and I think it's got the potential to make some really interesting things for mechanical keyboards. So I have a very limited space in my apartment, in my unit here, and I ended up using this table saw originally outside, but the extension cable that I was using to power that was in use, so I ended up using it inside in my bathroom, and it worked perfectly fine. And what I did was I made a artisan display piece. I'm not going to say an artisan holder, but the fact is it does hold an artisan, but it's not something to hold and store an artisan, more so about displaying an artisan, like a show-off piece. So I'll just walk you through very briefly on what I did with it, how I made it, and essentially it involves paddle pop sticks, which I glued together in various patterns, and then I marked it to make my cuts. And you can see that the actual cut quality that table saw is able to make is pretty decent. It's nice, clean, straight edges, and does a wonderful job on soft wood like paddle pop sticks. Now this is just held together with just straight up PVA glue. You can get it anywhere, craft shops, hardware stores or whatever, and it does the trick. So I just clamped it together with the glue, let it dry, and then I cut it. So I'm just going to show you some pictures of the process. So there it is sitting on a stool for a bit of height, and I was just cutting in my bathroom. There's the pieces that I was assembling together to form a pattern for one of them, and then that was the array for the next one, and you can see the sketch out, the dimensions of what I was trying to do, and just some progress shots of just using the guide and actually making cuts. And I think it turned out really great. Very versatile, very simple to use, relatively safe with the guide because I just bent the back holding piece straight with some pliers, and it allowed me to make the cuts without pieces getting caught between the guide and hitting the blade, which was one of the criticisms I had during my review. The only thing, once again, is the lack of an e-stop, and that the button to turn it on and off is actually really easy to accidentally hit, and you just got to make sure that your hands are fully clear and it is in the off position before you go plugging it in, because I had one instance where I'd accidentally bumped it without realizing, and I'd plugged it in and it turned on, so I just ripped the power plug straight away. Not that there was any risk because nobody else was around near it, but could have been an unpleasant experience. And so that's the rectangle version with some markings on that for where I was going to actually drill a hole, and I just used a pin vise and drilled a hole. So the resulting items that came from that experience were this. So that's the first one I made, and you can see there's just the patterning, a bit of a Ramo cup there, and it works quite nice, I think. And the second one, I went a little bit more on it in that there's that piece, but I kind of distressed it. I had all this graphite powder, and because of the lines I drew using pencil, the marks wouldn't come off the wood. Now I could have sanded it off, but I didn't have the equipment to do that nice, and clean because I didn't have any fine grit sandpaper, so I ended up distressing it with the graphite powder before I clear coated it, and that way the graphite doesn't actually come off. One of the really interesting things that came out from this though is when you look at it straight on, you know, obviously it's personal taste if you like this kind of thing, but look at how the color changes, because the graphite now reflects with the grain and it actually forms like a dark side depending on the viewing angle. So you can see there's a light side and a dark side, but then without anything else and just changing it, magically now it's a light side with a dark side. So I actually thought that was a really cool effect that I had not anticipated at all. Now you might be saying, well, you know, it's just hanging off there, it's actually not against it. And what I did was I just drilled that hole and I glued a surplus stem. I trimmed it so it would sit flat and flush. Try and get the focus in a little bit better there. There you go. And it works really well. On the back, I've just put some sheet magnet. Just sacrificed some old calendars that local real estate agents and government organizations want to give you, and it works amazingly fine. It works so well. There you go, there's just another stem. It's trimmed so that the edges are flat and flush, and then you glue it in. So here's a whiteboard, which is a magnetic version, and voila. Now the focus isn't doing itself any favors. There we go. So, boop, just some funky little caps that I've got, and there you go. Magnetized. You can stick them on a filing cabinet. You can stick them on your fridge. If you've got a whiteboard, anything that a magnet surface will stick, there's enough surface area there that it's going to hold itself, and a typical keycap weight with no issues whatsoever. It's quite, you know, between the two of them, I can actually pick up the whole whiteboard before a bit of shaking causes it to come loose. So that's just some ideas on what you can actually do with really simple tools to make nifty little pieces like this. With a bit more time, a bit more resources, a bit more planning, and using just paddle pop sticks and PVA glue, I could probably make a artisan box. I could probably make a wrist rest. If I had a lot of paddle pop sticks, I could probably even make a case for a macro pad or a num pad or something like that. And gluing it together and using that mini saw to cut it, plus some clamps, I think would work really, really well. So if you're into hand building stuff, a little bit of DIY, a bit of woodworking and things like that, there's no reason why that little table saw could not help you in an arsenal of a small workshop without having a massive, you know, big table saw like a 10-inch or even a 6-inch blade, when this thing is like a 13mm cut is reasonable, because you can get, at least here in Australia, at Bunnings, you know, 8mm dressed all round timber and so on and so forth. So there you go. I thought I'd just do a little bit of an update on what is actually possible with that saw and how it can relate to doing cool and interesting things for mechanical keyboards. So if you didn't check it out, do check it out. The link was at the front, and you can also just see it in the channel videos. And yeah, thanks for checking out this video. If you like it, if you like this kind of wacky stuff, hit that like button below. Share it if you think other people might enjoy seeing and having some inspiration on making things out of paddle pop sticks, even artisan holders and whatnot. And yeah, just let me know what you think in the comments below. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for coming along, and of course, as usual, until next time, happy clacking.